Expectant Earthrise enthusiasts, this is Internet Personality Vangelis, and it's finally time to take a look at that homicidally vain Lamborghini brother, Sunstreaker. Generation 1 Sunstreaker, one of the toys that was with me since infancy, and not the Earthrise version, because I was recently near my old G1 collection, and thought that this would be a funny bit to keep not doing Earthrise Sunstreaker. Ha ha ha, hee 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 hee. Starting off in his disguised form of a super tuning customized Lamborghini Countach LP500S, Sunstreaker's classic car mode is iconic in how poorly it would blend into just about any 1984 setting, but it is compact in hand, delightfully chromed in the overblown race car parts that matter, and still can kinda roll on its 4 rubber-tired wheels if it's in decent condition. Heck, you can even add a pair of boosters to the back, though they mostly detract from the silhouette and don't hold in place all that well. Imagination or something. There's also an opening cockpit for a Diaclone driver to take the controls. I don't have a Diaclone driver right now. Just visualize the least regular human you can picture in the driver's seat. Maybe their limbs are yellow, to be thematic. As literally one of, if not the first Diaclone car robot design, the blueprints that formed one of the bedrock pillars of Transformers conversion design as we know it today, Sunstreaker's leg slide extension and hood fold feet feel like a shade of the genesis of creation. The cockpit and torso assembly's repositioning pivot is a small callback to the piloted mecha roots behind the car robots in their 1982 debut, and the panel-revealed asymmetrical arm unfurl is a friggin' clever solution to mass placement for a time when the very idea was still in its infancy, if not its toddler-see. Speaking of infancy, say hello to some of the parts that were in a heap off-screen during the car mode footage, and say hello to Sunstreaker's face, the very first one to erupt from a car mode as it took on a bipedal form. I always wonder if fans introduced to Transformers in one of the later major entry points ever get a sense of straight-up shell shock when they see robot modes like Sunstreaker's, among the G1iest and least autonomous humanoid robot boy silhouettes in the non-Ratchet or Ironhide end of 1984. At a glance, one could easily disagree with that statement, especially with his excellent textbook for the era head sculpt, but squint a little and notice how his arms are kind of oversized, built for utility and launching fists. Or how his legs are more so a well-meaning facsimile that's been laid over top of a standing wheeled mechanoid's main form of locomotion. Sunstreaker is full of piloted mecha quality, literal pilot seat in his torso aside. I know what you're thinking, ooh, what a funny bit, we're gonna do an articulation segment on a G1 toy, but, oh, what a funny bit, we're gonna do a G1 articulation toy segment. So, Sunstreaker here can look down a little bit, to see what's going on in there with the pilot. Also, if you want to have some fun, when I was a kid, I did this to pretend these were like eyes for like a version of him where he's asleep, and this is like a drone, like a spooky space robot version as opposed to a friendly space robot. His upper shoulders have a transformation hinge that doesn't do much unless you use the other transformation hinge to move this up so it goes over that gap. Then you can swing back, and if you use this elbow joint from the transformation, then you can make it look like he's winding up a big ol' punch. Also, the wrists technically swivel quite freely, and in the footage of this, you might notice that his fists are kind of all over the place as we're going. And that's it. He can do this, so he can look like he's flying, I guess. And that's your articulation. So while we're here, let's talk about a fun G1 thing on some of these car robots, which is this thing here. So just off screen, I got this trio of missiles, which is, in 2022, I will just say that in 1984, it was quite comical to include all of these, given what was going on here. So there's still a spring in here for this button. But as far as what that spring was going to do, it was going to launch that fist, which doesn't launch. In fact, there's like a little bit of pressure in there, but it has to be pointed downwards using the additional spring power of gravity to just bombardier a fist onto somebody. However, you can then stick in one of these missiles, and now he has a gun hand. He doesn't have a missile hand because, once again, that's about it. The other neat thing is if you take one of these shoulder bits off, it's like a hidden... Hang on, how do you do it? It's a hidden missile. You can stick that in there too for like a booster laser hand. which also doesn't shoot, but it can bombardier out of there. So I'm sure there's some way to like pop open those forearms, put in, more powerful springs, etc. But poor Sunstreaker here is one of those molds that apparently was so damaged they couldn't use it for reissues, and he doesn't have the pop culture clout of a Soundwave, so they never reverse engineered new tooling for this G1 toy, so I don't want to crack mine open. This is my childhood one. One other fun thing, which I just noticed now, actually, for the first time in 30 whatever some years. This here. I was always wondering why my Sunstreaker would occasionally just like stand a little crooked. These screws are a bit loose, so this down here is having a bit of, axis, rickety raggedy hee-haw motion going on. So, be aware of that if you're picking up a Sunstreaker, but I'm sure if you're picking up a Sunstreaker, you're not going on YouTube to look up a toy review about whether or not he's worth your money, because you've probably already made that decision a long time ago, you nostalgia hoarder. It is such a shame that Sunstreaker's toolings have apparently been lost to time, because if there's one car robot original Autobot who deserves a reissue beyond reasons of base nostalgia, it's Sunstreaker. This was in many ways the prime progenitor of Transformers the toy line, and I feel like any enthusiast for this stuff ought to be able to safely mess around with a copy for reasons of, history and science. While he may not be the best of the Diaclone car robot Autobots, he's apparently become one of the more scarce ones, and is definitely among the most exciting of the squad. I'm genuinely surprised that he hasn't undergone the G1 Soundwave or possibly Beast Wars Rat Trap process of having a new tooling made off of an existing copy of the toy, skyrocketing the base retail cost. But imagine all the color variants they could do that they've literally already done with Masterpiece and Earthrise Sunstreakers. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelis, and don't worry, I hear you. You're either tired of the bit, or you haven't really even noticed it. The next review will absolutely, finally, truthfully be a modern yellow Transformers robot. No retro swerves, no surprise weed number. 2022 will be the year of Earthrise Sunstreaker.